let's talk about inquiry investigations. Now, if you are still trying to figure out the 5E model and the explore phase has you a little confused on what exactly the students would be doing or how you can actually turn some of your investigations into inquiry investigations, well, stick by because I've got a few ideas for you. I'm going to take you through what I do for my density part of my unit, and I'm going to show you what I use as inquiry. So during the explore phase, I want my students to be looking at substances and trying to figure out density. By the end of the explore phase, my goal is that students will, number one, be able to explain what density is in their own terms, and then also understand what affects the density of a substance. So, to get my students started, we do some investigations, and I just pop up some questions like, do substances with the same mass have the same density? So that's the investigation I'm going to show them. Now for that one, it's super simple. You can use liquids and put them in graduated cylinders. So what I have here are 4 liquids and they all have the same mass. I set it up so that all of these liquids have the mass of 9 grams. So we have salt, we have plain old water, we have a 25% saline solution and a 50% saline solution. And what I do for this one, this is their first investigation, right? They haven't really done anything. They don't even know the formula for density. I give them the mass and the volume. It's just easier. Otherwise, I'd have to make a whole bunch of these for all of my groups. So this one I do is a demonstration inquiry where I'm going to give them the mass and volume. They will calculate the density and then they're gonna have to answer the question and they're gonna look at the patterns of what they're seeing. And the idea is that they should be able to see that objects with the same mass will have different volumes and so their densities will be different. From there, that's when they get into the next question. Do objects with the same volume have the same density? So in this one, I am using these little spheres here. Now these spheres all have a volume of 4 milliliters. And so I'm having my students then do the actual investigation. They are going to go ahead and use a cup and they're going to zero their balances. They're going to place their spheres onto the balance and they're going to find their masses. So I give them the volumes, they now find their masses, they find their density, and from there they should be able to explain that objects with the same volume do not have the same density. And then we discuss, okay, so what do you need? What is density about? Does mass influence? Does volume? And by the end of this investigation, my students were able to tell me that it's the combination of mass and volume that determine the density of a substance. Awesome, let's move on. So next we get into this activity where they're given 3 cubes and they're all of the same substance. Now they have to go back to their elementary school days, right? Back to 2nd grade, 3rd grade, where they learned how to find the volume of a prism. They find the volume, they place it on the balance to find the mass, and then they go and find the densities. And for these ones, just to make it easier, I do have them round to the nearest 10th spot, so 1 decimal only. After they go through that one, then they get another bag with 3 other prisms, all again of the same substance. They do that 3 times. So 3 times they get a bag that has substances that are the same substance but different sizes. And in this investigation, I want them to discover how to identify a substance. What do we know? Do objects of the same substance have the same density. So they're going through that investigation. So that's the next one we're doing. And by the end of that one, they can pretty much tell me that a pattern they discovered was that the substances that all looked the same, in other words, the prisms that all looked the same, they had different mass and volumes, but they all had the same density. So we talk about how, well, what does that mean, right? And they start to think about that one. Then, and this one brings it home. This one brings it home. So this is the third investigation that I have them do. And we start off with an egg. Now this is just your regular Easter egg, okay? Your Easter egg here. Now with your Easter egg, you start with this one. It's about 35 milliliters. 35 to 40 milliliters is the volume. And in this one, I want them to actually find the definition in their own terms of density. So they start off and they place 2 small marbles. You could use washers, you could use spheres, whatever, something small that can go in here that you can start adding to. So they do this and they find the mass and they find the density. Then they add 2 more, mass and density, then 2 more, and then 2 more. Now to take it to another level, what you could do is you could also have them place them in a container of water after they've added their marbles here and found the mass and the density. And that can later on lead them into when does the object float or sink? Because they're gonna notice that it's gonna start off always floating. Eventually, it's gonna have enough marbles that it's gonna cause the egg then to sink. So as the density goes from below 1 to above 1, that egg is going to start sinking. And you can lead them into then, how do objects float or sink? So this one is a great visual because sometimes it's hard for them to understand the concept of density, which is the more matter you have in a given space, right? And this one's great for they can draw models. They can use those spheres as to represent like atoms or particles and draw them with just 2 atoms of particles and then draw them with 10 atoms of particles, and they can see like the more stuff inside that same volume, the denser the object is. So that one's also. Now, if you do have Explore Learning, there are a couple density ones out there. The one that is my favorite is the slice and dice, because that one really hits it home and helps them understand that objects of the same substance do have the same density, which is why we use it as a characteristic property. So they're gonna do all of this before the explain phase. I'm not teaching them anything. This is what they're discovering. We're gonna go over what they think density then means, what they think affects density. Then we get into the explain phase where I have the flipped lesson on density, and it goes into how to calculate the volume of prisms of regular solids, how to calculate irregular solid objects with water displacement, how to find the mass of a liquid and the regular mass, how to then find density, and it goes into talking about the gold mining days, how they use the density of gold versus pyrite to find out if they really did strike it rich. So we go into that. Then we go into the explore phase. Now in the explore phase, I still want them talking with density, but now we want to talk about density of substances, and that's when I would get into the density column, floating and sinking a little more, and go into that. So I hope that helped you understand what to do during the inquiry phase. Again, during the inquiry phase, it's all about them going through, investigating, looking at patterns, looking at evidence, and coming up with their own ideas of what is happening. Have a great day.
Thank you for watching another Adventures in ISTEM and Beyond video. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications for more Adventures in ISTEM and Beyond videos. For more ideas on how to incorporate science, technology, and skills for life into your classroom, go to adventuresinistem.com.